there's a particular circle of hell for heretics. And Dante had many sorts of heresies to choose from. He decides to focus on one heresy in particular. It's the materialist heresy. It's the belief that all we are is matter, and that the soul, there is a soul, dies to be a body. Okay? I mean, I remember when I was at Princeton as a freshman, Princeton was a black hole where faith and reason went to die. In a moral philosophy class, with a professor up there saying, Aristotle believed in a rational soul. Of course, nobody any longer believes in a rational soul. And all these wonderful leaders of tomorrow, these independent minds, these Princetonians, are all writing down, and nobody believes in a rational soul. That's what I was like. Anyway, Dante meets one of these souls down there. He's in an open tomb, right? And the tomb is a kind of symbol for the materialism that they believe. Everything ends in death. Everything finally ends in meaninglessness. The whole universe will end in death. What's the point of it all? And as he talks to this soul in the open tomb, and by the way, it will not be open for good. When the last judgment comes, the lid, which is sitting to the side of that tomb, will be placed over it and bolted shut. Okay? The symbolism is great. Materialism itself is like that lid, a very low ceiling over the human soul. All right? Imagine that for claustrophobia. Dante's noticed something peculiar about the soul. He seems to be able to see a little bit of the future, but he can't see the present. And he asks him a question about that. How come you can tell the future a little bit, but you don't know what's going on right now? And the man answers this way. As a man with bad vision, he replied, we dimly see things far away. When things approach or happen, emptiness is all we see. So essentially, nobody comes to us from your world above. We can know nothing of your human state, right? So you can understand that evermore, dead will be all our knowledge from the time the future ends and judgment shuts the door. Imagine the box of materialism. Okay? Materialism offers nothing to the human heart. This is one of our great hopes, because the default position out there is offering nothing. It offers a lid on a tomb. We have more. Because man is not made for a lid on a tomb. He's made for praise. He's made for a sense of the holy. In fact, he's made to seek out the holy. I think that if you hear the phrase secular humanist or secular humanism next time, you might recall that if man is made for the holy, if man is made for other than a lid over his head, then secular humanism is, strictly speaking, a contradiction in terms. It is not possible, because whatever is fully secular cannot be fully human. It is, in fact, inhuman. We are made for the openness and the freedom of praise. We are made to be oriented towards the holy. And there's no way that we could do what we do to children, or do what we do to men and women, if we had an abiding sense that these were holy creatures, made in their own right to apprehend the holy. Okay. There is a professor near us here at Tufts University, a fellow named Daniel Dennett, who argues that the very idea of human dignity or human holiness stands or falls with Christianity. He says, unless you believe in Christianity, you cannot finally, these days, you cannot finally uphold the dignity of the human being. Therefore, he says, there is no such thing as human dignity. He may be right about the first part, I don't know. I imagine Judaism might have something to say about that. But he concludes that there's nothing for us to consider as holy or deeply dignified when we look at another human creature. It's one of these creatures who is capable of beholding the face of God. And for him, it's nothing. Okay? We could remember that then. Man is made for praise. He's made for that orientation towards the holy. Maybe that will come back. I don't know. The second thing that I thought might help out. A country without marriage is not a country at all. That's my way of thinking of it. Okay? A country without marriage is not a country at all. When I look at marriages these days, they seem to me, despite their great expense, the lavish clothing and so forth, to be very thin and paltry affairs. In Renaissance English literature, we're privileged to have maybe the greatest wedding poem in the history of the West. It's a poem called the Epithalamion by Edmund Spenser, and he's celebrating his own wedding day in this poem. It celebrates the whole day. It's 24 stanzas long. He's built in all the seasons of the year, the days of the year, the weeks of the year. It proceeds hour by hour through the day. It's an absolutely amazing feat of poetic genius. But in this poem, he calls to witness his marriage, not just a couple of pals, but the whole natural world, the sun, the moon, the nearby rivers, the nymphs of those rivers, the nymphs that take care of the animals in the woods. They're to witness the marriage. And all the people of the town, too. Not just the people he happens to like, but everybody. Because the whole society is involved in this marriage. The cosmos is involved and the society is involved. The women come, they're beating the tambourines on their legs. The boys are running up and down the street. The groomsmen are lighting bonfires. Everybody is singing after the wedding service itself. They all come back to the house. They drink not by cups, but by the bellyful. Sprinkling all the posts and walls with wine. He calls upon the angels themselves that night when he's dismissed everybody, because after all, there are times when you don't want them around. Okay? He calls upon the angels themselves to witness to this marriage, so that at this moment there might be conceived a child. All right? They want to raise, he says, a large posterity of blessed saints for to increase the count. And the very idea of marriage spans the whole cosmic order, the whole society, and time past, because you're united with people who did this, and if they hadn't done this, you wouldn't be here now, and with time in the future, with earth and heaven. If that's not our conception of what marriage is all about, we've got a cramped, hole-and-corner affair. That's as big as it ought to be. Without that conception of marriage, I think your very community falls apart. We've got to recover, because abortion's right. Abortion is that fail-safe, right? People are doing the marital thing without being married, and then using abortion to cover what they have done. Or to get out of the consequences of what they have done. It won't do. I mean, we see marriage falling apart all left and right. Maybe we have misconceived marriage right in the egg. That is, we don't know what it is from the get-go. We have forgotten that your next-door neighbor is involved in your kid's marriage. People down the street are involved. School teachers, and everybody's involved. Everybody has a stake in everybody's marriage. Okay? A country without marriage is not a country. There's no community without it. It's the bedrock of any thriving community. Must be. Look, it spans those two very different types of creatures, men and women. What else could do that? The third thing I would like to say, and maybe the most important of all, I think this is related to a materialist conception of the world, and it's dangerous. Because we find self-styled conservatives talking this way, and now watch out.